Hi, in this video I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Maya interface. This interface has not really changed in a long time now. This is particularly for Maya 2019, and I'm assuming that this is the working version that you're familiar with or going to be using right now. If that is not the case, then probably it's going to look a little bit different, but Maya hasn't really changed this interface since 2016, I think, something like that, where they introduced workspaces and other things that are not that were not so common back in the day. So with any further ado, this is what Maya looks like. You may have seen this in a previous video for setting up your project. There's a lot of buttons, so that's the first thing that I need to agree with you. It's a lot of information going on in the scene. There's a lot of different shortcuts, and that is the most daunting thing that you will see inside of Maya most of the time. What is neat is that every single version that they have updates, they're going to be highlighting the new things with these green marks. Whenever you have a new plugin or stuff like that, this is going to be highlighting those particular things. So the thing is, I need to break this up into multiple things and multiple parts, so it makes a lot of sense when I'm working on a particular workspace to be displaying something in there. So let's talk a little bit about workspaces, and this is new since Maya 2017, so there's been a lot of different iterations that are going to be improving on this, but you should start these with Maya Classic menu. I'm going to be talking about the rest of them in a future video, but right now Maya Classic is the most important one that you're not going to be working with. Maya has a context menu. It's going to be sensitive to whatever you're modeling. So if you go back here on the top inside of the modeling tab, you will see that there's a drop down that you can select all the things to work with. If you take a look to the right of this drop down, all of the icons are going to stay the same, and I'm just collapsing those things here so you can see that they are pretty much the same standard thing. Depending on the context that you're working, if you're modeling or animating or rigging or creating visual particles or rendering, you're going to be seeing different things after the Windows menu here. So file, edit, create, select, modify, display, and Windows are going to be constant for pretty much all the subspecialties that you can work with in Maya. The rest of them are going to be related to this particular context here, right? So I have mesh, edit mesh tools, and all of those things. They're going to go back to modeling. Skeleton, skinning, deform, constraints, all of those are going to be pertinent to rigging. So it's really simple to just switch these things and then move on to the next menu. The shortcuts for these things are F2, F3, F4, and so forth. But F2 and modeling is the one that we're going to be using most commonly in the semester. The other part that I'm going to be exploring is this thing here, which is called shells. Now, shells are also going to be divided in multiple tabs. So if I want to talk about curved surfaces, polygons, rigging, all of those things, they are going to have specific shortcuts in here. The one that we're going to be working the most is going to be polygons. Inside of polygons, you have a basic shortcut to create primitive shapes, and then other models that we're going to be exploring as we go in the semester. So all of these shortcuts are going to have some information. If you hover your mouse over them, they're going to be displaying a small cue on what they're supposed to be doing for you. But all of these things are really just shortcuts from stuff that you can connect or find in this part on the top, on the context menu. The next thing that I want to talk about is going to be the viewport, and the viewport is by default going to be on the perspective mode. So you should be able to see this in a 3/4 view, and then it's going to show you the model on a perspective thing. But more than often we want to go into the orthographic view, and for that we have the top, front, side, and if we press space on the main perspective one, it's going to break out my view into 4. And then if I press spacebar by hovering my mouse on top of top, for instance, that is going to change and maximize it to be the top part. So a quick display of this is going to be by the end of the video in the Maya interface. The most common things that you're going to be doing in Maya are going to be selecting, rotating, scaling, and moving. And all of these things are going to be found on the query right next to each other. So Q for selection, W for moving, E for rotating, and R for scaling. lasso and paint selections are just selection modes that we're going to be exploring in a future lesson, but it's basically if you press Q and then click on something, you're going to be selecting that something. Then if you have something selected and press W, you should be able to see the widget change, and that is going to go to the move side of things. So again, a live demonstration later. This is another shortcut for the perspective view. So if you click here, that is going to show you the whole perspective. If you click here, that is going to show you the 4 views. It's the same as pressing spacebar on top of this thing. So it's going to change from this to this as soon as you hit spacebar. There are other modes that are going to be useful. So whenever we want to see just one single orthographic view on a perspective, you can click on this thing, and this is customizable, by the way. You can just change it to whatever you want. If you want to see it from the front, top, the side, and then the perspective view, that is going to be an option that you have available in here. So this thing out here is going to be the outliner, and you can enable and disable that just with this button. That is going to show you all of the models that are present in this particular scene. Each of these files is going to be known as a scene, and it's going to contain multiple objects. Each one of these objects is going to be listed here in the outliner. And there are some objects by default that you might not be able to see just because they are not rendered, and that is going to be the ones that are highlighted, or not highlighted, but grayed down here, like the perspective, top, front, and side. These default sets are just so you can see stuff happening in here. Is sort of think about them as lighting sets, but you can totally ignore them. We're not going to be working with those in the semester. These are just the cameras and how they're going to get positioned inside of my world. So this is the typical interface and how you will see it. When you click on this button, that is going to take you to help, and that is going to show you some tutorials and other things that you might be interested in taking a look at. So the next thing that I want to talk about is going to be the tool settings, and that is dependent on having something or a tool selected in the first place. So if I click on one of these things, that is going to be taking me to these tool settings, and it's going to let me do stuff to that particular tool. In the case of the selection tool, I can, based on the camera, so if something is being occluded behind of an object, if I have the camera based selection, if my camera cannot see that object, even though I make a marquee selection or a rectangle selection, I wouldn't be able to select the other thing. When I have an object selected, that is going to let me have other things that I can see inside of the channel box. So in the channel box, I can talk about the transformations or the position, rotate, and scale in the world, the name of the object, the history that I have done to the object, and layers that I can put this object into. The other thing that I'm going to be using the most is going to be this one, the attribute editor, which is a super full version of the channel box. So the channel box is just going to show me the transforms and the history. The attribute editor is going to show me way more information than that. It's going to show me all the shading network connected to this the shape. So that means the textures that I have assigned to this, the material properties, tessellation properties, and other things. So it's way more information than the one that I have in the channel box. Last, we have the human IK, but we're not really going to be working with this in this semester. That is just going to try to generate an IK skeleton that I can just work with, but this is only going to be working for humanoids, and that is a topic that is far more advanced than what we have time to cover in here. Newer since Maya 2016, we're going to have the modeling toolkit, which is a set of shortcuts that are going to be pertinent to the modeling side of things. Down here, you're going to have the animation timeline, so whenever you hit play, you're going to be able to change frames, and you should be able to see new stuff happening here in my object. So just to demonstrate this, I'm going to jump back to Maya. So I'm going to be opening my example project that I generated for a past video. In here, what I have is a basic cube. So I'm just going to go File, Set Project. A new window is going to pop up. I'm going to go to my example project, and now so long I see the mail script, I don't need to select anything, just set that project, and I'm going to open the project that I was working in, which is this scene here. So I'm going to open that. I don't want to save anything. So once I have that nailed down, that is going to open up my project. So again, if I click on the object, you'll see that I have this object selected in the outliner. And not only that, I didn't have anything on my channel box or my layer editor. But once I click on this thing, that is going to show me the information about the translation, right? So another thing that we talked about a little bit is if I press W on my keyboard or click on this thing, that is going to open the widget. As you can see, as soon as I move it, that is going to start modifying this thing. If I press E on my keyboard, that is going to let me rotate. So the blue one is always going to be related to the Z-axis, the red to the X-axis, and the green to the Y-axis. So if I click anywhere else, that is going to let me modify all of them at once following this sort of sphere. And if I select this one that is cyan, that is based on the camera. So if my camera is here, that is going to be doing this rotation. If I hold Alt, left click and drag, that is going to change my camera. If I do the middle click, that is going to let me move also by holding Alt, and Alt right click is going to let me zoom in and zoom out of my model. So that is going to let me change the rotation of the camera, of the object, sorry, based on the camera. See, that's rotating like this. If I move like that, it is going to be rotating like this, but that is going to be based on the camera. And then if I press R, that is going to let me scale the object in multiple axes. That is going to let me elongate it like this. This one is going to let me elongate it like that. Cancel, I clicked save by mistake. These planes are going to be related to the X and the C plane, so I can move it like that. I can make it smaller, but notice that my scale is going to go to a negative side. That's something usually you don't want to have. So that said, the other mode that I can work with this thing is going to be in local space or global space. That is going to be really important later, but think about this. Notice that I rotated my object, right? So over here, my C, X, and Y are going to be pointing this way, and I'm going to try to make it into a triangle. See, C is going in this way, X is growing this way, and Y is growing up. But as I rotated my object, it no longer is aligned with the world. This is what we know as local space. Local to this thing, this is going to be the front, the right, and top, but it no longer matches the orientation that I have in my world. I can make it a little bit more noticeable if I keep on rotating it like this and click on the translation. See, actually I somehow made it move. Oh, actually no, it's going to be aligned to the world just because this tool is aligned to the world. So if I go to my tool settings, see, the axis orientation sets world, but if I go to object mode, this means something completely different, right? This is my X movement, whereas if I change the orientation to world, this is my X movement. So it is really important to know what axis orientation you're using. If it's the world, of it's the local, so the object mode, they are going to be they're going to mean something completely different in any case. So most of the time you can just work with the world component, but once you start doing some more advanced complex stuff, chances are that you want to change that to the appropriate axis. So the Maya interface is really simple to navigate once you are familiar with the shortcuts. I'm not expecting you guys to know the shortcuts just by heart right at the beginning, but the QWERTY ones, the QWER, are the most useful ones, alongside with the Alt and middle click, left and right clicking. So I will just get familiar with this by clicking on some of these object primitives and try to make something. That is the next exercise that we are going to be working with. So if you take a look at the calendar, there's going to be a pillar exercise. So I'm going to be recording another small reading or video that is going to show you how to create these in a super quick easy way, but that is going to be on to the next video. So thanks for watching.